Well, good evening there to you, ladies and gentlemen. This is Scott Manning coming to you live from Scott Manning Sports Talk. I want to thank all of my loyal viewers for being with me here tonight. Well, folks, it is now time for the Scott Manning YouTube College Basketball Podcast Show. I got 5 big games on the slate to talk about this week. It's going to be a big week in college basketball. I got Purdue and Wisconsin going on the TV right now. I'll be keeping an eye on that game, and I'll let you know how that shapes out. There's about 2:10 left. We're tied at 67. So I'll keep you up to date on that game here for the next little bit. But I got 5 big games on the slate I want to talk about. And then we're going to play a little game of up or down. I'll explain how that game goes, and I'll have the latest bracketology report for you. And then for my closing thoughts, I'm going to be talking about a new policy that NBA Commissioner Adam Silver has come up with. And I think he needs to rethink that policy. And I'll explain what that policy is. But first, let's get to the show. Let's have a great time. Let's enjoy the show. And let's kick back and relax, and let's get to it. Louisville will face number 12 North Carolina this week here tomorrow. Now, let's think about this for a minute. North Carolina is coming off of a big 90-82 victory over NC State on Wednesday night. Now, Roy Williams has said a lot of good things, but he said there's some things we need to work on. The main thing that Roy Williams said they need to work on is turnovers. North Carolina beat North Carolina State 90-82 despite 23 turnovers in that victory. He said, and I'll tell you right now, he was not very happy with the way his team performed in the turnover department. He was very happy his team won. He said that's what we need to work on. Roy Williams said, I got some great players. Luke May, Kobe White, those guys can step up. Cameron Johnson, I'm a little bit worried about him because he had to leave the game with some soreness. In reserve forward, Sterling Manley has missed the last 3 games due to a knee injury. So here's the question. What are North Carolina's chances against Louisville? Louisville is coming off of a bad loss, 89-86 over Pitt on this past week. Louisville coach Chris Marks said, we got a team. We just got to get the job done. We just couldn't execute at the end. And he was right. And another thing that hurt Louisville too, 15 turnovers in their loss. And what got overlooked was the fact that Christian Cunningham had 23 points and went 9 of 11 from the field for the game. Now, a lot of people have said this is going to be a very interesting game. But for Louisville, let's think about it. They got a couple of big guys who could step up. Jordan Noah, 17.3 points per game. He can answer the bell. 8.3 rebounds per game. He shoots a pretty good 46.8% from the field. And he's a very decent 74% free throw shooter. So don't take him lightly. Christian Cunningham, he only averaged 10.6 points per game. He had 23 in the losing effort against Pitt the other night. 10.6 points per game, 3.4 assists per game. He shoots 50% from the field, folks. That's something we need to be thinking. That's something that North Carolina needs to think about. And also too, Christian Cunningham, another 74% free throw shooter, and he shoots 46.2% from beyond the arc. That could be very important as well in that game in the game tomorrow. Now for North Carolina, Cameron Johnson. He's a question mark and he said he'll be ready to go. I hope he is, because I'll tell you right now, if he's not, Louisville will probably have a field day with North Carolina. But North Carolina has Cameron Johnson, 16.2 points per game. He shoots 51% from the field, people. That's something to think about. And also too, he shoots 81% from the free throw line. That could be very important as well. There's something else to think about. And he shoots 49.4% from three-point land. Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Hey, thanks for the comment on the haircut. My sister was the one that actually did it. But anyway, Luke May, there's another guy on the watch list. 14.8 points per game. He averages 10 rebounds per game, for crying out loud. He's an 86.6% from the free throw line. He's a very good free throw shooter himself. And he only shoots 44.9% from the field. Kobe White, 14.7 points per game. He shoots 42.9% from the field, and he's an 80% free throw shooter. Now, what's going to decide this game between North Carolina and Louisville? Let's see. First thing that needs to happen is North Carolina can't be turning the ball over 20-some times. And Louisville, they had 15 in their loss to Pitt. There's something to think about. Whoever turns the basketball over less is going to be the winner in this one. Louisville 15 when their loss to Louisville, in their loss to Pitt, they had 15 turnovers. North Carolina survived NC State in a rivalry game. They turned the ball over 23 times. Can't do that. And if you look at the team numbers for both of these teams, as long as it does not turn, 23 turnovers for North Carolina in a victory over NC State, dude. I'm not making that one up. I'm not making that up at all. Now, the team numbers for North Carolina. From the field, they shoot 47.6% from the field. Louisville shoots 45.1%. So that could be a virtual toss-up right there. At the free throw line, Louisville is slightly better. 76.5% for Louisville from the free throw line as a team. North Carolina 75.2%. Another toss-up there. Slight edge Louisville. But in three-point shooting, if it turns into a three-ball contest, give it to Louisville because they give it to North Carolina. They shoot 37.1% from three-point land. Louisville only shoots 34.9%. That's going to be key tomorrow. Turnovers is another big thing. Whoever turns the ball over less is going to be the winner. I'm going to tell you right now, if North Carolina turns the ball over somewhere between 15 to 20 times, they're going to lose. Louisville, they got to do a better job of controlling the ball. And they got some players to get the job done. And it's going to be a very interesting game tomorrow. And this is a game that starts right out of the gate, right at 12 noon. And I'm going to tell you right now, the ACC race is very crowded. And I'm going to get to that a little later in the show. So stay tuned for that. Now, the next game on the watch list that I'm going to be talking about, Pitt, NC State. Now, North Carolina State is coming off of a loss. Coming off of the loss to North Carolina. And Pitt knocked off Louisville. And also think about this too. The Pitt Panthers are a very great basketball team. The freshman backcourt, Trey McGowan's and Xavier Johnson, in their victory over Louisville, 54 points combined. 33 of those were from McGowan's on 12 of 19 shooting. That was huge. And Pitt got their first ACC game conference victory for the first time in almost a year and a half, 2 years. And think about this for Pitt too. They're holding opponents to 38.4% shooting as a team. And they're only letting opponents shoot 28.3% from beyond the arc. That is huge too. Pitt coach Jeff Capel has said, our team is going to turn around this year. We're going to be a legit team. We don't know if we're going to be able to get into the middle of that very crowded race in the ACC, but we're going to do our best to try. And I think I got the freshman backcourt to do it. And yeah, he does have that freshman backcourt. 54 points combined between McGowan's and Johnson in their victory over Louisville. That was huge. Now for NC State, think about this too. NC State coach Kevin Keatts has said, I've got a team that can compete for the ACC. We got one bad loss against North Carolina. I'm not going to let us get that down, but we realize too what's on the line. And everybody has already said the ACC race is going to get very crowded. Yeah, 54, that's a great duo. The freshman backcourt, that's their backcourt, man, and they're just freshmen. That's something to think about too. The Diaper Dandies did the job against Louisville on Wednesday night. And let's think about this for a minute for NC State. Torin Dorn, the best player for NC State, 14.3 points per game, 6.7 rebounds per game. That could be huge too. He shoots 51.6% from the field, and despite the fact he only shoots 63.8% from the free throw line, that 51.8% from the field really makes up for it. Markel Johnson, 12.3 points per game, 4.2 assists per game. He leads the team in that department. He shoots 57.3% from the field. He only may shoot 71.8% from the free throw line, but he makes up for it by being a 46.8% three-point shooter. He can shoot the ball from beyond the arc. That's what everybody needs to think about right there, too. And then as far as this game goes, this is going to be an interesting matchup. Think about it. Pitt's coming off of a big win over Louisville. We will find out Saturday if Pitt's for real or not when they play NC State, because NC State's number 15 in the country. I want to see what they can do against the team. I want to see what the Pitt Panthers can do against a team like NC State. That's going to be something to think about. And if you look at the team numbers, Pitt needs to keep this game, they need to keep this game close, and the only way that Pitt can keep this game close is if it's decided at the free throw line. Because if you think about it, NC State, they shoot 51.3% as a team. That is huge. Pitt, only 45.6% as a team. At the free throw line, Pitt only shoots 70.3% at the free throw line. NC State's only 69.2%. And in the three-ball shooting, not very pretty. NC State 39.9% from three-point land to Pitt's 33.8%. The only hope for the Pitt Panthers is if this game is decided at the charity stripe. Because I'm going to tell you right now, if it comes down to it, it's going to be a very interesting game. And think about it. Can the freshman backcourt shock NC State? McGowans and Xavier Johnson. That's going to be something to think about too. And they've got them. So NC State is better. NC State is the better team, in my opinion. But I am trying to stress too that I think Pitt is going to keep this game close, because if they have a defense that can step up, if they can do that, they can get the upset victory. But I'm going to tell you right now, NC State's got some players that can get the job done. And I'm telling you this is going to be, and it will be a close game. It's going to be very close. I really do believe that. I really do. So that's something to think about as well. All right. Let's move on to the next game that I want to talk about on the watch list tonight. Number 1, Duke. Number 13, Florida State. Now, everybody's going to be saying this is going to be a Duke blowout. There's some people that are going to be on the fence with that. And I'm one of those guys. I'm a Duke fan on the side. I admit, I'm a Duke guy. But I'm even going to say this too. This is going to be a true road test for the Duke Blue Devils when they go on the road to Florida, when they got to go to Tallahassee and face Florida State. Now, Duke is coming off of a big victory over Wake Forest, 87-65 the other night. Zion Williamson, 30 points. That might be a game. But I'll tell you this, though. It's going to be a very interesting game. Zion Williams, 30 points, 3 for 4 from three-point land. He only shot 4 for 21 from three-point land all season. And Duke shot, in Duke's victory over Wake Forest the other night, they shot 17 of 23 from inside the arc. They only took 8 free balls all game against Wake Forest. That's going to be very interesting. And I don't think Duke will need a three-point shot to win this one. And I'll tell you why here in a second. Now, if you think about it too, R.J. Barrett, 22.8 points per game. Zion Williamson, 20.9 points per game. And I'm going to go to the bank with this right now. One of those two guys is going to win National Player of the Year. I may be wrong, and if I'm wrong, I will man up and I will apologize. But if you think about it, think about Zion Williams, 30 points. Shot 3 for 4 from three-point land. He's averaging 20.9 points per game. R.J. Barrett, 22.8 points per game. Those two freshman sensations are very dangerous. So keep that in mind. Now, as far as Florida State goes, if Florida State plays like they did against Miami, this game is going to be over in 5 minutes. Because if you think about it, in Florida State's victory over Miami, David Nichols, 13 points, P.J. Savoy, 10 points. 2 bench players. Those 2 players came off the bench to get those double digits. The Florida State starters, the starting 5, 27 points combined. That was it. It was a miracle they won. And here's a case in point. Terrence Mann, 11.8 points per game. That's his average. He only had 7 against Miami. Can't do that. Florida State cannot play like they did against Miami. Because if they do, Duke's going to have a field day. And that's all there is to it. But if you look at the team numbers, and there's a few things that stick out. Duke, they shoot 49.8% from the field. Florida State only shoots 46% from the field. If this game is decided from inside the arc, give it to Duke. If this game is decided at the free throw line, give it to Florida State. 73.1% for Florida State at the free throw line. Duke's only going 67.6%. If it's a three-point contest, and I don't think it's going to be a three-point contest, but I'm putting this out there anyway, so this way you know what's going on. Florida State is slightly better. 32.7% for Florida State, 32.2% for Duke. So if this is a three-point contest, give it to Florida State just by that much. But I don't think it's going to be a three-point contest. Just the simple fact is, Duke is a better shooting team from inside the arc. That's all there is to it. And if this game is decided at the free throw line, give it to Florida State. Now, Duke may be the #1 team in the country, but this is going to be a big road test when they got to go to Tallahassee and face Florida State. Duke Coach Mike Krzyzewski's already said, we're going into the meat of conference play here. This is our first real test of the season. Florida State coach Leonard Hamilton has said, bring on Duke, we're ready for him. After what I think I told some of my players, when we beat Miami, it's not going to get any easier. It is not going to at all. And that's all there is to it, my friends. So this is going to be a good one. I really do have a feeling on that. And I feel really great about it. Okay. The next game I want to talk about is number 25, TCU, number 23, Oklahoma. Now, I'm going to start out with Oklahoma because they're coming off of a loss to Texas Tech, 66-59. Christian James had 14 points. Brady Manick had 13 against Texas Tech. But what went wrong for Oklahoma in that game was they only shot 32.3% from the field for the game. And they only shot 30% in the second half. And they had 14 turnovers, which really killed them right there. Oklahoma coach Lon Kruger said, if we're going to compete for the Big 12 championship, we can't be making mistakes like this. And he's right. Lon Kruger said, we got TCU coming up. We have a chance to redeem ourselves. And I hope he's right. Bottom line is, you can't be doing that. Christian James, he averages 16.9 points per game. Brady Manick, 11.5 points per game himself. And they're the two big stars that Lon Kruger in Oklahoma have right now. I mean, Christian James, he's averaging 7.7 rebounds per game. That's huge. He's shooting 35% from beyond the arc. That's something else to think about too. And I'm going to tell you right now, both guys are only. I mean, Christian James only shoots 72.7% from the free throw line. Manick's only 70.8. That's something to think about there as well. But I'm going to say this though. Oklahoma has a chance to get back on track against TCU because TCU is coming off of a loss to Kansas, 77-68 the other night. They had 20 turnovers in that loss. And I will give. May I ask you 2 college football questions at the end of the live stream? Yeah, you can ask me when I'm done streaming. Just leave the comments section, and I'll be more than happy to answer those for you after the show. So I'll be more than happy to take those. But I won't be able to do it until I'm done live streaming after the show. All right, where was I? TCU and Jamie Dixon. Now, TCU had 20 turnovers against Kansas. You can't do that. RJ Nimrod, 14 points. And I'll tell you right now, TCU shot 46.3% from the field for the game. They missed 6 of their last 7 shots. You cannot do that. Not against a team like Kansas. And also, too, Desmond Bain, he's the best guy they have right now. He's averaging 14.3 points per game. And he's averaging 5.4 rebounds per game. He shoots 54% from the field. He's an 89.3% free throw shooter, and he shoots 38.8%, from three-point land. There's something to think about right there, too. And also, too, TCU's got some players. Alex Robinson, 13.4 points per game. That could be huge. Koet Noi, N-O-I, by the way. Some of these foreign names I can't pronounce. I apologize for that. 12.9 points per game. Jalen Fisher, 12.1 points per game, too. J.D. Miller, 10.9 points per game. And TCU is going to need every single bit of that against Oklahoma. And here's why. TCU, they shoot 49.7% from the field. Oklahoma shoots 44.7%. Something to think about there, too. At the free throw line, TCU, 68.1% from the free throw line for them. Oklahoma's only shooting 67.2%. So really, if you stop and think about it, TCU is the better team. They shoot 35.5% from three-point land to 34.3% for Oklahoma. Something to think about there as well. That's a biggie, and that's all there is to it. Now, this game's going to be an interesting one because both teams are coming off of losses. So someone has a chance to get back in the win column. And a lot of people have been saying it could be Oklahoma because they got more to play for. TCU, they're trying to get there, but they got a little ways to go yet. And that's all there is to it, my friends. Bottom line. Now, the last game I want to talk about is very simple. Number 16, Ohio State against Iowa. Ohio State is coming off of a shocking loss to Rutgers. I'll get to that in a second. But Iowa's coming off of a win over Northwestern, 73-63. For the game, Iowa shot 41.4% from the field in that victory against Northwestern. And they shot a very fantastic 80.8% from the free throw line. And this is despite the fact that Tyler Cook is out with soreness in his knee, and he's day-to-day. Will he be available for the Iowa contest against Ohio State? Only time will tell that. But in their victory over Northwestern, Joe Weiskamp had 19 points. Luka Garza, 16 points. Isaiah Moss, 12 points. Iowa coach Fran McCaffrey's already said, I was happy with our team's performance. We're going to be doing our best. Bring on Ohio State. I know they're coming off of a loss, so we're going to put them in a bigger bind. That's all there is to it. Now, Ohio State, they got embarrassed against Rutgers 64-61. What went wrong? Here's four things that went wrong for Ohio State. 39.7% from the field, 30.8% from three-point land, 63.6% from the free throw line, and they turned the ball over 13 times. Now, Caleb Wesson did have 18 points. Luther Muhammad, 13 points. C.J. Jackson, he had a chance to send the game to overtime. The ball with the three ball, the ball hit the rim, didn't go in. Rutgers gets a shocking victory. What can you say? The Rutgers Scarlet Knights, they're not going anywhere, so they're going to try to put it to anybody in any way possible. Now, the Buckeyes are sitting in 6th right now in the danger of not even getting a single bye for the Big Ten tournament. And I'm going to tell you right now, Ohio State coach Chris Holtmann was so disappointed after the loss, he said, we got to find a way to coach better. I'm as guilty. My players, they take the blame. I got to take some of the blame too because I didn't coach them properly. Our coaching staff, we got to do a better job of coaching because these are disappointing losses and we can't be doing stuff like this. But I'm going to say this though. It's going to be very interesting to see how the season goes the rest of the way. And this game is going to be very close too. If this game is decided in the field, by field shooting, give it to Ohio State slightly. Because they shoot 47.1% from the field to Iowa's 46.7%. So that's going to be a very interesting thing to see how that goes. From the free throw line, if it comes down to a free throw contest, slight advantage Iowa, 76% from the free throw line to Ohio State's 72.2%. If it comes down to a three-ball contest, Ohio State has a very slight edge. 36.2% from the three-point line to 35.5% from the field for Iowa. So there's something to think about there as well. So the Ohio State-Iowa contest is going to be a close one. That's all there is to it, my friends. And it's going to be very interesting to see how that goes the rest of the way. Okay, now we've talked about all the games. Now let's talk about some other stuff. There's a few other things I want to talk about. It is now time to bring back a segment, what I do with my college football shows. It's a very simple game. It's called Up or Down. I will ask the question, and you can either tell me up or down, and I don't care how you do it. I'll even give you my response. All right, question number 1. Is the streak over for Kansas for them winning the Big 12 championship again? So let me ask it again. Before I give you my answer, let me explain something to you. Udaka Azubuike is out for the season due to a hand injury. When Kansas is playing, they average 46.3% from beyond the arc. And Azubuike has been averaging 1.6 blocks per game when he's available. But when Kansas has Azubuike on the team, has him out there on the court, he's like the 1992 Michael Jordan Dream Team. Without Azubuike, Kansas looks like the Carlo Boozer 2004 Dream Team when they played horrible. So, is the Kansas streak of winning a Big 12 championship for the fifth, winning the Big 12 championship in college basketball over with Azubuike out for the season? Do you vote that one up or do you vote that one down? You know what? If you stop and think about it for a second, they got some other guys that Kansas can turn to. And they're coming off of a big win. So you know what? With that being said, I'm going to vote that one down because Kansas has other guys that can step up. Quentin Grimes, Devon Dotson, LaGerald Vick, Dedrick Lawson. Those are the guys. Those guys really proved that they can step up. Grant you, was TCU, but Kansas faces Baylor tomorrow, and we'll see on that. But for the time being, I am going to vote that one down because I do believe Kansas will win the Big 12 championship again. But I will say this in all fair warning: do not count out Iowa State. Mayak, I'll tell you, Iowa State, they upset Kansas last Saturday night. And Texas Tech, do not take them lightly. Iowa State and Texas Tech will chase Kansas all season. But for now, I am going to vote that one down. I do believe Kansas will win the Big 12 championship again. And that's all there is to it. Next question. Is Virginia Tech a serious threat in the ACC? Nico Alexander Walker. Before I give you my answer, let me explain something to you. Now, Virginia Tech has been playing basketball. Nico Alexander Walker, 18.8 points per game, 4.2 rebounds per game, 3.4 assists per game, 2.4 steals per game. That's huge right there. And he shoots 47.2% from beyond the arc. But the ACC is a tough conference right now. So is Virginia Tech a serious threat in the ACC? Do you vote that one up or do you vote that one down? I'm going to vote that one up because I do believe Virginia Tech is a legitimate threat. I really do believe that Virginia Tech can possibly jump in and take the ACC away. If they don't win the conference, they can put it to a lot of great teams. Virginia Tech, because right now, the ACC race is very crowded. Virginia, Duke, Florida State, North Carolina, NC State. And if you throw Virginia Tech in there, we could possibly have about 6-7 teams going at it. If Syracuse or Pitt, if Pitt can come out of the pack and knock off NC State, Pitt could possibly come out of the pack and take it away too. So is Virginia Tech a serious threat in the ACC? I vote that one up. And I do believe that Virginia Tech is a very serious threat in the ACC. I really do believe that. Nico Alexander Walker is the reason why that Virginia Tech is in it right now. But I'm going to say this, though. The ACC is going to be very crowded. And it's about to get a little bit more crowded if you throw Virginia Tech in there. Because think about it. Virginia, they know how to get the job done. They pride themselves on defense and passing the ball around. Duke, you got R.J. Barrett and Zion Williamson. Florida State, they got a great bench. Their starters are nothing to brag about. North Carolina, you got Cameron Johnson, Kobe White, and Luke May. They can get the job done too. And NC State, despite the loss to North Carolina, I still think NC State's a threat too. But I'm going to say this now one more time. Do not sleep on Virginia Tech. Do not sleep on them at all. Next question. And this is the last question for our little up or down segment. The next question. St. John's is for real. Do you think St. John's is for real in the Big East? Well, think about it. They're ranked number 24 in the country. They did lose to Villanova on Tuesday night, 76-71, and the other loss was to Seton Hall, 76-74. Head coach Chris Mullins had a great season so far. He's turned the St. John's Red Storm around. And you can think about this too. Shamari Pons, 20.6 points per game, 4.4 rebounds per game, 6 assists per game. He shoots 49.5% from the field. He shoots 81.4% from the free throw line and 40.3% from three-point land. So do you think St. John's is for real? Do you vote that one up or do you vote that one down? You know what? Consider what I've seen so far out of the Red Storm. I'm going to vote that one up. And here's why. They got Shamari Pons. They got a lot of other guys who can step up too. Shamari Pons is their best player, but they got some great guys who average almost 10, 15 points per game. And Chris Mullen has turned that team around. And that's all there is to it, my friends. And St. John's, are they for real? I say yes. But the Big East is going to get crowded. Because right now you got St. John's, Seton Hall, Marquette. Look out for them. Look out for all three of them. And I'm going to say this now. It's going to be very interesting to see how the season goes in the Big East. And that's the bottom line, friends. Here's the real deal. St. John's is for real. I really do believe that. And you can go to the bank with that any day of the week. Okay. That is our little up and down segment. That was just a small little sample of what I'm going to be doing. I'll have more questions for you next week during next week's show, but I just wanted to give you a small little sample of what we're doing. All right. It is now time for the Bracketology Report. And wow, there have been some major changes to the Bracketology Report. Out in the East region, Purdue has dropped to the 8 line. But Purdue just did beat Wisconsin 84-80. So that may help their cause just a little bit. UCF, they've gone up to the 9 line. And I'm going to tell you right now, those two teams at the NCAA tournament were to start tomorrow, they would meet in the first round. Ohio State has gone from the 5 line to the 6 line after that loss, after losing to Rutgers. And they could fall a little bit more if they keep losing the way they have been. Nevada, they went down to the 3 line. They had a little bit of a rough week. NC State has dropped from the 6 line to the 7 line. After losing to North Carolina, I can understand that. And Florida has gone from the 9 line to the 10 line. And if the tournament were to start tomorrow, those two teams would face off in the first round. Texas Tech, they've had a good week. They went from the 3 line to the 2 line. And don't sleep on Texas Tech winning the Big 12 title either. Don't sleep on them. And CSU Bakersfield, welcome aboard. You're on the 15 line. You make your debut this week. Out in the West region, Michigan State, after a bad week for Kansas, they've gone from the 2 line to the 1 line. They're all of a sudden the number 1 seed. And Northern Colorado, welcome aboard, folks. You would be at the 16th seed, and you two would face off in the first round. Now, Texas has had a pretty good week. They've gone to the 9 line out in the West region. Florida State, after losing 65-52 last Saturday, and after barely escaping against Miami, they've gone from the 3 line to the 4 line. Murray State has had a down week. They went down to the 13 line. And if the tournament were to start tomorrow, those two teams will face each other in the first round. Indiana, they dropped to the 6 line. And they just got beat by Maryland earlier tonight, 78-75. So that's not going to help their cause any. And Purdue Fort Wayne, you're up to the 15 line. That is amazing. That is remarkable. Now into the South region. Virginia, they've gone from the 2 line to the 1 line. That is big right there. Iowa State, they had a nice little week. After upsetting Kansas last Saturday night, they've gone up to the 5 line. And Fresno State, they've actually moved up to the 12 line. And if the tournament were to start tomorrow or Friday, those two teams would meet in the first round. Houston, the Houston Cougars up to the 4 line. Despite losing to Temple earlier on Wednesday night, Houston coach Kelvin Sampson has said, I've got more confidence in our team. We're going to win the American Athletic Conference this year. They've gone up to the 4 line. And Vermont has come out of nowhere and has pulled off some upsets. They've gone up to the 13 line. And if the tournament were to start on tomorrow or Friday, those two teams will meet in the first round. Princeton, out of the Ivy League. Some of them Ivy League boys can play. They're up to the 14 line this week. Cincinnati. Last year, we were talking about Cincinnati and Wichita State meeting for the American Athletic Conference crown. They've gone down to the 10 line. And I'm going to tell you right now, they may be on the bubble if they keep this up. And Ryder's gone from the 16 line to the 15 line in the South region. Now, let's go to the Midwest region. St. John's. I say the St. John's Red Storm is for real. And I did vote that one up. They've gone to the 8 line. Louisville, they've dropped to the 9 line. They have a chance to get some redemption when they face North Carolina. If they can knock off North Carolina, they can do themselves a favor. And if the tournament were to start on tomorrow or Friday, on a Thursday or a Friday, those two teams will meet in the first round. Buffalo, the Buffalo Bulls out of the MAC. They're up onto the 5 line now. Auburn has dropped to the 4 line after a rough week. Virginia Commonwealth University, welcome aboard. You're coming on the 11 line. Virginia Tech, and I said Virginia Tech is for real, and I still do believe that. They have gone up to the 3 line. Now, Maryland, they upset Indiana 78. They beat Indiana a little bit ago, 78-75. That helps their cause a little bit. They've gone up to the 7 line. Ole Miss, welcome aboard. You're on the 10 line this week. Now, Kansas, after a rough Saturday last Saturday night, they've dropped from the 1 line to the 2 line. And Valparaiso, welcome aboard. You're a new addition to the bracket this week. And if the tournament were to start tomorrow, those 2 teams would face off in the first round. And Maryland and Ole Miss would face off in the first round as well. That is huge and important right there. Now, the next thing we need to talk about are the bubble teams. The teams that are on the bubble. I'm going to start it out with the last 4 byes into the field. Cincinnati, they got to upset Houston. They got to upset the Houston Cougars if they want to improve their tournament resume, or otherwise they're going to be on the outside looking in. They almost have to win They almost have to win the American Athletic Conference. That's all there is to it for them. Ole Miss and Florida, both these 2 teams are in the same boat. Ole Miss has got to find a way to upset Kentucky or Tennessee. Florida's kind of in the same boat too. Upset Kentucky and Tennessee to help your resume. And both of them have to go a good ways in the SEC tournament. Florida almost has to win it just to get in. The other last 4 bye into the field, as far as the last 4 bye, the Minnesota Golden Gophers out of the Big Ten. If Minnesota can upset Michigan State or Michigan, and even if they upset Ohio State, that would help their tournament resume a lot. But here's the thing for Minnesota. They've got to go a good ways in the Big Ten tournament, or otherwise they're going to be on the outside looking in. Now the last 4 into the field. Syracuse, the Syracuse Orange. They've got to find a way to get themselves into that crowded race for the ACC. I'm talking about they got to beat Virginia Tech. They got to upset Virginia. A victory over Duke or North Carolina or NC State, that would help. When it comes down to it for Syracuse, they got to beat Virginia Tech. They got to upset one of those 2 teams. But wins over North Carolina, Florida State, and NC State, and Duke, that would help. That would really take their tournament resume a long, long way. And I'm going to say it now. Syracuse is the team. They got to get into that race for the ACC crown. And they got to get some huge wins somewhere. Duke, North Carolina, NC State, that would be a major help. Otherwise, Syracuse is going to have to win the ACC tournament in March to have any hope of getting in. Now, Arizona State, they're part of that last 4 in. Arizona State, they got to win the Pac-12 tournament. And right now, the Pac-12 is just weak. They're very weak right now. There may only be one Pac-12 team getting in. It may be Arizona State. And this is the same Arizona State team that upset Kansas. And that's the only reason why I think Arizona State would get in. That upset over Kansas earlier in the season, and if they can get some conference wins, and if they can win the Pac-12, Arizona State is in. Creighton gave a game away the other night against Marquette. So Creighton, they got to get some victories. They got to beat St. John, Seton Hall to have any chance of winning the Big East, and they got to win the Big East crown if they're going to get in. Kansas State started out number 12 in the country, and after some bad losses, we're seeing what the Kansas State Wildcats are really about. They got to win the Big 12 tournament to have any hope of getting in. Now, the first 4 out, Alabama. They're supposed to be a big football school, but they did upset Kentucky earlier in the year. Another big upset to Tennessee. If they can beat Kentucky one more time, I think Alabama will get in. if they can go good ways in the SEC tournament. Butler, the Butler Bulldogs, they're just struggling this season, man. That's all there is to it. So I think Butler's going to be out. No doubt about it. Clemson, they got their doors blown off by Duke the last time I saw them on ESPN. So they're not going anywhere either. Now, the Temple Owls out of the American Athletic, they did upset Houston. If they can get a couple of more good wins in the American Athletic Conference, and if they can win their conference tournament, Temple's going to get in. The only way Temple's going to get in is if they get the automatic bid. That's all there is to it. The next 4 out are Washington, San Francisco, Utah State, and Arkansas. Just to let you know, FYI. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for my closing thoughts on this night. Now, my closing thought stems from a question that was asked to me last Saturday night during my college basketball postgame show. The question was very simple. What do you think of the new rule that the NBA has come up with that says black athletes cannot play in the NBA if they are educated? I'm going to repeat that. I'm going to repeat that response tonight. I think NBA Commissioner Adam Silver needs to rethink this policy because there's a lot of black athletes that have an education. If they want to, you know what, if I was commissioner, if you have an education and you still want to play in the NBA, come play in the NBA. I would take you in a heartbeat. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver has dropped the ball on this one. And I'm going to say it now. It's ridiculous that whoever, I don't know if it was Adam Silver or somebody else who came up with that rule. I think it's a bunch of BS. And that's all there is to it. And here's the thing. An education is the most important thing you can get. An education, that is the most important thing you can get. But you know what? If you have an education and you have your degree and you still want to come play in the NBA, I say go play in the NBA. But at least if you get hurt and you can't play anymore, you got something to fall back on. That's the thing with me. I don't like, now the one and done rule, I do not approve of it. I don't like it. Because you go to school 1 year, then you leave, then you go pro and you get hurt, you're screwed. But at least this way, if you have an education, you get your degree, but you want to go play in the NBA, I say go for it. Because at least if you get hurt, you got something to fall back on. I think Adam Silver needs to re-examine this, needs to look at this rule again. And I think he needs his head examined, personally. I think it's a crying shame that some of these players, some of these black athletes, and some of these black athletes who have an education want to go play in the NBA and they're getting ripped off because they're educated. Bull. If I was NBA commissioner, I said, even if you have an education, if you have your degree and you want to come play in the NBA, there's a team, we'd be more than happy to take you. And I would take them in a heartbeat. But at least this way, if you get hurt, you have something to fall back on. And at least you can make a name for yourself off the court. And you can get endorsements, and you can still do your thing off the court. I'm going to tell you right now, Adam Silver, he must have been off in La La Land or something. Or he must be known as David Stern Jr. Because that's the way I see it. I personally do believe that Adam Silver is David Stern Jr. in disguise. Because David Stern tried this once. It didn't work. Adam Silver's trying it again. He's going to realize he's going to look real dumb real quick over this rule. You know what? If you're an athlete, I don't care if you're a black athlete, I don't care if you're a white athlete, if you have an education, and if you still want to go play in the NBA, that is your decision. Adam Silver has no right to take it away, to take a decision like that away from black athletes. And I don't care if you're a black athlete, white athlete, if you're even an athlete, period. If you still want to go play in the NBA or go play in a professional sports league, that should be your decision, not a commissioner or not the head of a league. And what Adam Silver has done is put the screws to himself. And he's going to realize that real quick. Or he's going to have egg on his face when it comes back to bite him. And that's all there is to it. And when this question was asked of me last week, somebody said to me, do you think it's time that we change the rules of the NBA? I say this rule sucks. This rule is horrible. It always has been, and it always will be. And Adam Silver is going to look real dumb, real quick, when he realizes what he has done. I'm very disappointed. I'm disappointed in NBA Commissioner Adam Silver for this one. He's going to realize he's going to look real dumb, real quick. And that's all there is to it, my friends. And that's all there is to it. And I have nothing more to say tonight. Whew. All right, folks, I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here. I want to thank you guys so much for being with me here tonight. Please come back tomorrow night for the Scott Manning YouTube College Basketball postgame show. That'll probably be at about either 11:30 or midnight. I'm going to have a wrap-up of all the games that I've talked about tonight. And if there are any upsets along the way, I will immediately have a video for you during the day. Hopefully my device will cooperate. But I want to thank you guys so much for being with me here tonight. And you guys are a great group. And thank you so much for being with me. I'll be back tomorrow night for the Scott Manning YouTube College Basketball Podcast postgame show. And I want to thank you guys for being with me here tonight. Thank you so much for being with me. You guys have a great night, and God bless. Good night, everybody, and thank you.